You're listening to the Hawke Media Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and executives crush the digital marketing game. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. Let's get into the show.
All right, you're listening to HawkeTalk. I'm here today with Grant Cardone. How are you?
I'm doing good, my friend. How you doing?
Doing great, man. Good to have you. So, I really always like to ask, was it 3-4 years old? You were filling stadiums, ready to go, getting all your other kindergartners in and getting them to get excited about their future. Take me back. Where'd this all start?
Oh yeah, look, I was born in the backseat of a Rolls after my family landed their Gulfstream. Now I grew up in a 1,400 square foot house, five kids, mom and dad. Middle class family in Lake Charles, Louisiana. My dad was a stockbroker before he passed. He died when I was 10 years old. So it left a single mother to raise 5 kids. And she didn't know how to bring income in. And so I grew up with a lot of fear in my household about money. She was clipping coupons. She was doing what middle class families do every day, which is you got enough money to worry, but not enough money to live.
And where were you in the 5 kids? Were you the oldest, middle child? Where were you?
I was the youngest. I was actually the fourth, but the fourth and fifth were twins. So my younger brother was only younger by 5 minutes.
Gotta love it. You got that 5-minute younger brother. And so growing up, did you start being entrepreneurial right away? Start the hustle, when did you start really finding your way and trying to earn money, trying to help?
Yeah. So look, when my dad died and I saw my mom concerned about money, kids see everything, right? They experience everything. They know what's going on. They know when the family's fighting. They know that when there's trouble, there's fear, and they know when everybody's happy, right? So I knew my mom was unhappy. I knew she was scared and she was worried constantly. So I made it at 10 years old, I made it my mission to solve this money problem. I didn't know, but I didn't know how to do it because at 10 you can't work.
It was right away. It was right after your dad died. Yeah, it was right after your dad died. You jumped in.
It was instant. It was instant because my dad died on a Thursday. My mom was selling the house on Monday. So in 3 or 4 days, we buried my dad and she was already making moves. She was terrified. And because we couldn't keep up the house that he had bought. It was paid for, by the way. There was no debt. The cars were all paid for. He did all the right things, but when the income stops, the income stops, and you're playing defense now. And that's what I really learned back then. I think now looking backwards, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm setting up my life so if I die today, the income doesn't stop. Elena's not going to move into fear. My charities aren't negatively impacted. My dad figured out the first part of the game. He just didn't figure out the rest of it. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. And so what was first? How did you start helping? At 10 years old, what did you start doing?
Well, I was just cutting grass and, helping mom around the house. And then I got very rebellious and angry because of no leadership. I kept waiting for my uncles to show up. I had 3 uncles. I waited for probably 13 or 14 months for my dad to come back. I thought it was a dream. And and then I waited for the uncles to pop in. They never did. By the time I was 16, I was starting to experiment with drugs. I was angry. At between 16 and 25, I was using drugs every day. It was only months after I started using drugs that I was using them all the time, and ended up with a drug problem at 25. Mm-hmm. In debt, loser, my body was in terrible shape. I've been beat up, 70 stitches in my head and face. I was unemployable, 130 pounds, 50 pounds less than I weigh today. Literally my whole body was starting to break down without exaggeration. Yep. And I'd overdosed 2 or 3 times. I was in trouble. I was in a lot of trouble. And then I went to treatment and cleaned up my life. That's really when my life started getting on the right track.
So 25, you went to treatment. It worked. Did you come out fresh, ready to go? Like what?
No, I mean, no, the only thing the treatment center did, because they kind of messed me up there too, because they said I had a disease and I was powerless and my life would be unmanageable, and the whole pitch, right, about the disease. And I'm like, wait a minute, man, I just made some bad choices. Like anybody that uses drugs every day, you will become addicted to drugs. Like you don't have a choice in it. It's not a genetic thing. It is everyone. Yeah. There's no one that if you use drugs every day, you will become addicted to drugs because your body will crave drugs. And
right.
There's nobody that does, you just can't escape that game, right? So I needed the 28 days to break. Yeah. I needed to break it. But when I came back, the work I did on myself when I came back was more important than what I did while I was there, which was I had to change my friends, change the places I was going to, and I needed to stay busy. I really realized that I got in trouble when I wasn't busy. When I'm busy, I don't bother anybody. When I'm bored, everybody's going to get in trouble. And so I just changed all my habits and my routines, and I poured my addictiveness and all that wasted time with destructive drugs. I poured it into learning my craft at that time.
Awesome. And so what did you start with? Like what when you realized you needed to be busy, what did you get busy with?
Well, I was a salesman. I had a job. The company that I worked for when I went to treatment took me back. They were gracious enough to keep me on. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a job. Yep. And my reputation was that bad where I lived. And dude, I hated sales, by the way, hated it. And I didn't have any choices though, which was a cool thing for me because I really learned when you don't have choices, that's the moment to become a master. Dishwasher, whatever, just become a master. And I became great at something I hated. And I learned how to sell. I learned how to communicate to people. I learned how to prospect. I learned how to keep a full schedule every day. I learned how to follow up with people. Some really great, at that time, I didn't know what I would use it for later. I didn't know I would become this guy that would actually teach these things to companies. Like fast forward today, we teach companies how to do all the stuff that I hated. I get paid millions of dollars a year to teach companies how to do those very same skills.
Yep. And that's how it works out. I mean, I always talk about, I made fun of marketing majors in college. I thought marketing was worthless. Lo and behold, now I employ 200 marketers, and it's just how it goes. You can't really draw that straight line for it.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening from there? How long did you work there? Would love to know about the path to where you are now. What happened next?
Yeah. So I would do that job for the next 5 years. At 30 years old, a company hired me to go out and start teaching companies. I did that for about a year. Huh. The guy didn't have a way to grow inside of his company. And he and I,
was it like a consultancy? What kind of company was that?
It was a consulting company. And so he was really impressed with me. He hired me to start teaching companies, start selling consulting contracts to companies. And I traveled and did that. Yeah. There was no place to grow in his company. And I left. He didn't want to grow his company. And so I was forced to become an entrepreneur. And I didn't want to. I never thought about being a boss or a business owner. Yeah. But I was kind of forced into that situation, and then would spend the next 3 years between 29 and 32 starting my first company.
And what was your first company?
It was basically I was working with automobile dealers around the United States and auto manufacturers on changing the process in which they handled people.
In terms of their own people or their customers?
Their customers, how they handled customers, the sales process. Back 30 years ago, they wouldn't give you a price. I mean, still today, they hang on to some of those old traditional ideas. I was the guy that went in and said, hey, look, offer the price up front, offer the payments up front, offer everything somebody wants up front. Don't make this such a hard, this should take 30 minutes, not 30 hours. And so I was the guy that really ended up changing. I worked with every major manufacturer in the United States and Canada and changed the way people sold automobiles.
Got it. And so you built that you said for 3 years, or did you stick with it for a while?
No, I still have that company today, though. what is it? 30 years later, I still have that company. So we still consult in the automobile space.
So that Cardone Enterprises, like, is that the start of your business, or was that?
Exactly. It was G Cardone Enterprises. We created a bunch of training programs and consulting contracts with major. This was my first in with big companies. Like for the first 20 years of my career, I only worked with companies. Only in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years did we start doing events and working with entrepreneurs.
So, and I'm curious, what was that like? What was the next big, like, sort of pivot, or evolution in the business? Like, you're working with car dealerships. Like, at what point did you start expanding more?
So, dude, look, I was doing 250 gigs a year on the road. Literally, I was doing 20 days a month in front of audiences. A guy comes to me, I think I was 33 years old, said, "Hey, I want to start a second company with you under your name." That company's still going today. I'm a minority owner in it. It's been extremely successful. And then the third company was the real estate. I started dabbling in real estate when I was 33, 34. That's $2 billion worth of real estate today. Started out with a $78,000 house. And now it's a major part of our business today.
And that was taking cash flow from the consulting, consulting, and putting it into real estate.
I was taking money from the first 2 businesses, burying it in the real estate, and just literally going to sleep, not worrying about it. I said, I'll look at it in 5 or 6 or 7 years.
Smart. And what was the second business, by the way, the one you partnered with?
It was an offshoot of the first business where I quit going and doing the consulting. They picked up the consulting role, and I was doing more of the bigger events, speaking to larger audiences. That would become a funnel for that consulting company. And then cash started coming in from both those. And then I was working on my life. In the meantime, my life got pretty well, around 40 years old, I was making some money, and for the first time in my life. And then I had to start working on my life again and became interested in having a family at some point.
Nice. And so when did you meet your wife around that period, or when did you meet your wife?
Mid 40s. I'm like, okay, I'm done with all this traveling. I'm done with the single life and acting like an idiot everywhere I went. And met Elena about 45. It took me a couple of years to close that deal. We started having kids when I was 51. So I started having kids late in life.
Yeah. But you had the opportunity to go do, as you said, run around like a maniac and do your thing. And, sometimes it's not so bad to wait a little while. And so what I'm curious about the evolution, like, I want to get to the part of like now with the, consumer events, so to speak, but the, let's just say 15 years between you being 33 and 48, how did the business evolve? Was it just continuing to double down on real estate and plant seeds, building cash flow?
Yeah. All I did was bang on the first 2 over and over and over and over again. I changed very little. All we did was do more of it. And so I just kept beating it.
And
I just kept.
Yeah, I think people miss that. Go ahead.
Totally did. Everybody, like, I don't want to say everybody misses it, but I just leaned on it over, and I kept running the same play over and over. And if it made money, I just hit it again. And then I take all the money and I just buy real estate. And the one mistake looking back, I got comfortable somewhere in my 40s, early 40s. I got comfortable and I quit doing deals, and I just started stacking cash. That was a major mistake. I should have just kept leaning into that formula. Bang the first 2 businesses, take all the cash flow, dump it into something real. Because businesses are made up. Okay. The idea that I would help somebody improve something is an idea.
Yeah.
And it is a bit manufactured. You know what I'm saying? Like
100%. Yeah.
And the real estate's real. Like, I can go see it, touch it, walk it. There's tenants there. People need to live there. Yep. And that I should have just kept doing more of that. I'd have 20 billion today rather than 2.
Yeah. That's similar size real estate portfolio built off a waste business. And same thing. He just took all the cash out of the waste business, put into real estate starting 30 years ago. And I always ask him, what's the, biggest thing you've learned? He's like, don't sell, keep stacking. Like, Just keep going. That's the biggest thing. Like, everything I've sold has been worth way more later. He's like, just keep buying and planting, buying and planting.
Biggest mistake I ever made was selling anything that I've ever owned. There was one piece of property that I sold that I'm glad I did. I would not want it today, but everything else I should have just kept it.
Yeah. Yep. And it's interesting on businesses too. I just dealt with this whole brain exercise of we've been offered to sell for more money than I'll ever need in my life, but there's a reason they want to buy it. And it's like, that's the thing. Like, if you keep going, it's going to be worth more later. So just unless you're getting old and retired, just keep going.
Yeah,
it's and that's why I like what you said about 15 years of heads down, planting. I think people need to hear that. It's not always just about a get rich quick. It's like, you got to grind for a while, and that can really benefit you.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that the mistake I made was I took cash and I would start just storing cash and backing off of the investing. That was a mistake. Okay. Cause I was brought up to save cash because of some of the trauma early on in my life about losing people. You know, I repeated some of what my dad did. Oh, pay all the debt off. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. The whole thing is like, no, dude, keep getting money from some other people, invest it in something real, converting cash to some real property that produces more cash. And I should have just kept repeating that. Shouldn't have sold anything. I shouldn't have played it safe. And, you know, but hindsight's 20/20, right?
Yeah. And you're still doing just fine. So now I'm curious. So, you know, starting 5 years ago, what got you into sort of the event space, going to, like, you know, the common people trying to get motivation from you, 10X? Yeah. How did that all come about? Yeah.
So in 2008, when the economy crashed, the thing that got me through it was my real estate, because the other two businesses were just scorched. They didn't die, but they were cut in half, and they really, you know, one of them is recovered. One of them never recovered, because the guy that was running it never recovered. Right. The business is only as good as the operator. The operator got emotionally just scarred. So at that time, I realized in 2010, I had gone too narrow. There was too few. The vertical was too. I was too dependent upon one vertical, one clientele. And it was in 2010, I'm like, I'm gonna get the whole world to know who I am. And that was 11 years ago. That's when I started a YouTube channel, Facebook had popped out. And then over the period of time, you know, I started creating video content for the everyday. I'm like, I'm gonna get people in Taipei to know my name. I'm gonna get people in Dubai to know who I am, Australia. If I can get people to know me in parts of the world that maybe don't even speak my language, I'm going to be perfect here at home. So 2008 really taught me a lesson about going wide, not just deep. I had the deep thing figured out. I should have been going wide at the same time. That was
the idea is like, you diversify your audience, you diversify yourself, like you have more opportunities. So if the economy crashes here, maybe you can work in Taipei. Was that part of it?
Well, no, it wasn't so much geographical. It was never be in one industry. So back then I was in automotive. Today we're in automotive, furniture, chiropractors, dentists, doctors, healthcare. I mean, I don't think there's a business I'm not touching. Financial services, technology. Google uses the 10X rule, like all the way down to like, you know, doing the Undercover Billionaire show where I have nothing.
Right.
So I'm just appealing to people that have no money. People, we send out 1,000 free books every day, every single day of the year. Wow. Those convert to something else later on. They're all connected to funnels, so that people raise their hand and say, "Hey, I want to come to your event." We do a 15,000 person event every year.
Yeah, it's coming up, right?
Yeah, it's right around the corner. Three weeks from.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect. So last two questions, because I know you got to run. First, what's next? What's on? What do you think's in your future? What are you excited about coming down the pike?
Look, I want to take my portfolio, my real estate portfolio, and I want to do something with it that's never been done before. And I really want to. I'm trying to crack the game and allow the smaller player to actually get access to institutional quality real estate. The deal's a bit stacked the way it is now. Most Americans only get to buy the garbage. Maybe they get to buy a house and they think it's a nice house, but it's not the best real estate really. And so, I'm hoping to do something on Wall Street at some point, but I got to build my real estate portfolio up a bit before I can get the leverage I need with the big guys.
Makes sense. And what's last question? What is one piece of advice you have? You do this a lot, so I think you'll be good at this. For someone just trying to achieve their dream, to get to whether it's to become you or whatever that their version of being, getting to success is, what would be your piece of advice?
I would tell you, don't try to do it on your own. Like, don't think that you need to be the guy, because you're not going to be the guy or the gal. You're going to have a team. And if I was doing it all over again, I mean, if you watch what I did in Undercover Billionaire, I did not go try to do anything by myself. I found people that were already in play. I would tell the person that's listening right now, go find somebody in play. Go find a driver, a risk taker. Don't do this from scratch. Go jump on somebody's train, jump on their plane, stow away in the baggage department, dude. Like, if you can't get a seat at the table, serve water. And get in the room where people are actually moving and doing something and taking risk, and get in the room where people have money.
Amen. Well, Grant, thank you so much for the time and being on HawkeTalk. Really appreciate it.
Brother, I appreciate you, man. I'll see you in the club.
Amen. See you on Clubhouse, bud. Talk to you.
Okay. Peace.
You've been listening to the Hawke Media Podcast. To ensure that you never miss an episode, make sure to subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.